What did you make of the filing, and how likely is it that we're going to see a third party appointed and Trump's wishes granted?
Alex, there wasn't much new in this document other than, as you say, some insults hurled at the Justice Department. We saw in that initial brief the request that they wanted a special master to have an independent review of these materials. But some of the things that were in the government's response, I just don't think that the Trump team has an answer for. I mean, number one, it's already been reviewed. They already went through all of it. So in some ways, it would be futile to have a special master review this. But also, having somebody intervene now at this stage would slow down the need to do this damage assessment. So there's a real harm. You know, sometimes you might say, well, all things being equal, why don't we just have a special master? Because that will create this appearance of fairness, and it will silence some of the critics. But there is a real cost to that. And that isn't really addressed here. What they say is that those two things are inconsistent. But I don't think they are. What they're saying is the FBI did the initial review of this to segregate out items protected by the attorney-client privilege, but now they need to do a separate damage assessment. And so I think that's the reason that the Justice Department opposes this. But nonetheless, the judge may decide that an abundance of caution is appropriate here. I think if I were looking at this, the law would favor not appointing a special master because, as the government argues, this isn't Trump's property anyway. This is property that belongs to the United States. His assertions of executive privilege are really without any merit. And as the Justice Department argued, to the extent he has any, which he doesn't, it's a qualified privilege, and it would be outweighed by this need to assess the damage.
Yeah, there's a question about what the judge does, though, right? This is a Trump-appointed judge. And there is something to be said for, as one legal mind said to us, crossing your T's and dotting your I's. And if Trump is making this very vehement case suggesting this is somehow politically motivated, they make note in their filing that Trump may be a candidate in the 2024 presidential election. Just for optics alone, could you see a special master appointment likely even in this instance?
Well, I'm going to give the judge the benefit of the doubt of acting in good faith. The mere fact that Donald Trump appointed her, I don't think means that she will have a thumb on the scale in his favor. And also, he is a likely presidential candidate in 2024. That's 2 years from now. And so appointing a special master now really has no impact on the outcome of that election. Most of the arguments he raises are really arguments that one would raise if this evidence were to be introduced in a trial against him. And he conflates a request for return of property with a request to suppress evidence. He talks about how his Fourth Amendment rights were violated. The time for that argument is if charges are filed and he receives this in discovery and the government expresses an intent to use it against him in a trial. That's the moment to make those arguments, not now. So I would think that, if I were a betting person, I would say no special master will be granted here. But I suppose if the judge wants to, out of an abundance of caution, and err on the side of fairness for Donald Trump, and perhaps an effort to blunt the criticism, then perhaps she'll grant one. But, in my view, I think Donald Trump and his lawyers are going to find something to argue about and criticize anyway. And so why give them something that when there's no legal merit for it?
The Justice Department seemed to almost foresee this in their filing late last night. And they said, look, I'm paraphrasing wildly here, but if a special master is appointed, their concern is really that it slows this whole thing down, and that the review, the Director of National Intelligence review, to make sure that these documents are not actually a threat to national security, that review continue without any further slowdowns. And so they've asked for a number of sort of preconditions if a third party is appointed, that both parties mutually agree on this person, that this person has, special classified information access, that they only review a limited number of these documents. Do you think who has the upper hand here in terms of the bargaining, in terms of who gets to be the special master and what his or her purview is?
Yeah, well, I think, the Justice Department does something lawyers do all the time, which is to argue in the alternative. They cite a number of reasons why they think a special master is not appropriate here, not necessary, and actually harmful to the interests of the United States. But then they say, but if in the event, Judge, you are persuaded that a special master should be appointed here, at the very least, here are some conditions that you ought to consider. And one of those is, as you suggest, making sure this happens quickly, appointing somebody who already has a clearance at the highest levels to review these materials. Keep in mind, in their own filing, they said that some of the FBI counterintelligence agents had to have their own clearances upgraded to review this material because it includes special access programs, which is the very highest level. It's not a huge number of people out there who have these clearances. And what they don't want to have is have some lawyer that Donald Trump found on TV yesterday say, this is the guy who's going to review it, and it takes 6 months to get the clearance. They want somebody who already has a clearance that they can mutually agree upon. And they've asked for a deadline of September 30th so that they can be sure this is done quickly. Because every day, Alex, that this assessment is not done is a day when perhaps the life of a source overseas who is reporting information could be at risk. And so it's really important that this be done quickly. That's why I think the equities here really favor not appointing a special master. The filter has already been done. And if to the extent this information gets introduced at a trial, that would be the point at which Donald Trump could file a motion to suppress this evidence.